Sometimes it seems like it's kind of like a fantasy. So you want to go to slide number 47. The title is The Nature of the Mind. Keep going. I think my 47 and your 47. Go back up. Um, we might be in different slideshows. Yeah. I think I have a different slideshow than you do. What? I can share from my laptop. Okay. I'm going to share from my screen. Good. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, so research, and these are some things that the Vedas say about the mind. It's quite interesting because part of the process of spiritual advancement is to learn how to get control of yourself, and the mind is the center. It's like the steering wheel. So we'll read some of these things, and then we'll discuss them. The Rig Veda says, in the beginning was the mind, the primal germ of material existence. In other words, it is by our misuse. Can you turn the volume off so I don't have to? Is that possible? So, doesn't have a mute, nothing? Did you go into or go into sound settings and just okay, so everything good or everything bad in life is a result of the choices we make, right? Unless it's just some bad karma that comes to you. But yeah, but yeah. So we made a choice at one point to turn our back on Krishna, and here we are. And it said we've been in the material world from beginningless time. So if you contemplate forever, that's a long time, right? And it's very difficult to contemplate forever. We can't contemplate it, but the mind has kept us in this world forever. So therefore it's called the primal germ, the original thought that I don't have to serve God. That original thought, that's why we're here. And so the germ of the mind had that thought, and here we are. And as long as that thought remains, we stay, birth after birth, sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes in the middle. Chinese. if you can do the Chinese simultaneous, that would be good because we have another class here, so I can't slow down that much. This is the next one is something Prabhupada says. The mind is always planning how to stay in the material world. It is the repository of all ideas of sense gratification. So the mind is the center. And if you think about it, very few people are planning to get out of this world. Everyone's planning to make it better in this world, right? And the Hindu religion is a little different than I think all the other religions. Maybe Buddhism is similar, maybe Jainism is similar, but the Judeo-Christians, they just believe in one life. Right? So you either go to heaven or you go to hell. But in Hinduism, the belief is there you can go to a better planet, just like Elon Musk is trying to go to Mars, right? So, there are better planets, there are better places to go. So most people are thinking, let me make this life better, and if you understand, you have some knowledge, you'll think, let me make the next life better. If you're just a normal American, you think, let me make this life better. There is no next life, right? But so it's a little better. You understand there's a next life, but it's the same idea. I want to make this life better. I want to make my next life better. I just want to stay here. So you know how everything, it looks good or bad relative to something else? Just like if you buy a new car, let's say like you buy a Honda CR-V, right? So I don't suggest ever getting an Lexus CR-V, because if you do, you won't like your Honda anymore. Because my sister has a Lexus and I have a Nissan, which is probably a little not even as good as a Honda CR-V. And when I got in her Lexus, I was thinking, can you give me this car? Because I can't drive my car anymore. So you know what I'm saying, right? Good, bad, it's relative, you know. If you just come from India to a house like this is like amazing, right? If you live in America for 10 years, it's like, it's nice. Not like, wow, it's amazing. It's nice. It's a nice house, right? But there's like hundreds and thousands of other houses just like this, right? But if you come to this house from a poor neighborhood, this is amazing. And if you're a wealthy person, this is like the servants' quarters, right? Because you have like 10 servants. So it's all relative, right? Isn't it? If you're, and so go to a higher planet, it's better than this planet. It looks better, right? So, and Krishna says, yeah, and you go up there, still you're going to die. You're going to get old like that. So it's better, but it's relative. So it's an interesting thought that most people are planning to stay here, life after life after life. And religion is meant to take you out, but most people don't even know that. They think religion is meant to make life here better. So they're using religion to remain here, which is a real paradox, isn't it? Like God can take you out and you're using God to keep you in. Does that make sense? God can get you out of samsara and you're praying to him to keep you in samsara, right? So there's a few stories like that. Have you ever heard this story? A lady was carrying some wood. She lived in the village, so she was collecting wood and carrying wood for her fire. And she had a big burden of wood. It was quite heavy. And then she dropped it and he said, oh, Govinda, help me. And so Krishna came and he said, what do you want? He said, can you put the wood back on my back? That's God. You could ask him to build you a mansion out of wood, but can you put the wood back on my back? So You're going to God who could give you anything, and you're asking to place your burden in life on your back. Does that make sense? It's like when Vamanadev begged charity from Bali Maharaj. He said, Bali said, what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want. I have a big kingdom. He said, Vamana said, I'll take 3 steps of land. And Bali was taken aback. He said, I can give you 300 steps, 3,000 steps, 3 miles of steps, 30 miles of steps. I have like the whole kingdom. So it's something like that. God can give you much more than you ask, and you're asking for the things that are causing you your own problems. It's awkward, right? Of course, the Bali Maharaj and Vamana, that's a different thing. Anyway, it's an interesting thought that we're always thinking how to get ahead. But you really can't get ahead, not permanently. You can get ahead for a while, right? But you can't stay here forever. So you can't get ahead forever. So, there are better alternatives than the material world, and that's explained in Bhagavad Gita. But most people aren't interested, are they? Right? Just interested to stay here, have a good time. Like when we were young, when we were young, America, like when I was young, America was extremely prosperous. It was so prosperous that the younger generation got sick of materialism. Can you believe it? Like, we don't want money. We don't want 9-to-5 jobs. We don't want houses. Could you believe it? We were like, we don't want it. Take it. We dropped out of university and said we want to pursue something more meaningful. It was a completely different time. And at that same time in India, you, at least maybe not you, but people who were of college age wanted to come to America for prosperity. So you were coming for it, and we were giving it up and going to India. Just like this. Everything was backwards, right? So, but that is the benefit of having it. Because if you don't have it, then you always think it's what you want. When you have it, then it's the polish and the glamour of it is not as it was when you didn't have it. And sometimes what's really bad is when you really want something and you get it and it's not what you wanted, you're actually more unhappy than before you had it. Because before you had it, you were hopeful it would make you happy. But when you get it and it doesn't make you happy, then you don't know what to do. It's like it didn't work. The actor Jim Carrey, he gave a talk which I loved, and he said, I am rich and I am famous. Movie stars are quite wealthy, right? You do a movie and I don't know how much they make, 5, 10, 20, barrels of money, like more money than you could like figure out how to spend. And he said, I hope that all of you become like me, rich and famous. So you can realize, like me, that fame and wealth won't make you happy. Has any of you ever heard that speech he made? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So sometimes you think certain things will make you happy until you have them and you realize happiness is not in acquisition, but it comes from within you, from your spiritual connection and so forth. But if we don't understand that, then the spiritual connection will not be that important, and we'll only use the spiritual connection to get more material things, which is not what it was created for. Although, you approach God, he'll give you whatever you want. But I'd just like to explain how he feels. So, sometimes your children will ask you for something, and it's just like they bother you enough. You don't want to give it to them, but if they bother you enough, you just say, okay, just to get rid of them, right? Yes? So people approach God, they approach the deity, they ask for things. So it's like, oh, give me this, give me that. It's like, okay, okay. It's just like, okay, go. Okay, go. Yeah. It's not like there's any love and affection there, but if that's what you want, you can have it. So I am God, I can give you love, I can give you liberation, I can give you so many things. You want like a piece of sand of material happiness? Okay, take it, no problem. It's like, the story of Dhruva. You know that story? So beautiful. Dhruva Maharaj was offended by his father, and he's a Kshatriya. He's born in a Kshatriya family, so revenge. So he decided, on the advice of his mother, he said, I want to go to the forest and meet God, and I want to ask God for a kingdom bigger than my father's, because I'm taking revenge against my father. Basically, his father rejected him because of his stepmother. He showed preference to his stepmother. So he was very determined. Out of his determination was coming from his anger. And anyway, finally Narada Muni came, and he talked Narada Muni into giving him a mantra by which he could see God, and eventually Vishnu came. And so, his whole idea was, I will see Vishnu, and I will ask Vishnu to give me a kingdom more powerful, bigger, a bigger kingdom than my father. Like, I'll show you, you throw me off your lap, or like your father says, you're useless. And you say, I'll show you, I'll start a company bigger than yours, better than yours. Well, something like that, right? So, so something happened when he saw Vishnu. He became satisfied. And Vishnu was saying, so I know you wanted to see me so you could ask for something. And he said, I don't want it anymore. And Vishnu's saying, no, you should ask. I know what you want. You should ask. He said, but that was just like a piece of glass, what I was asking, and you're like a gem. It's like seeing you, I'm completely satisfied. I don't want anything. So when you have that connection, then you're satisfied. Otherwise, you don't have the connection, then you want some glass fake diamond, and that'll make you happy. So that's what it means. The mind's always planning to stay here. And we were discussing yesterday how the mind can be the enemy. So that's one way it's a big enemy. It thinks like it's very interesting. You remember when you were younger and you were thinking, if I just had this, I would be happy, right? Isn't you're like 16 or whatever, 12, 8, and you're thinking, if I just had this, I would be happy, right? And then you finally got it, whatever it was, your bicycle, your sewing machine, I don't know, whatever it is you wanted. So you got it. And then after you got it, you had another, if I just get this, I'll be happy, right? And right now, we still have, if I just get this, I'll be happy. Maybe it's a bigger TV or a bigger car or bigger house or whatever it is, right? We all have it. Isn't that interesting? We all have it, even though we already got all the others. If I just have, oh, it'll make me happy. So it just perpetually goes on. Isn't that interesting? So we're supposed to learn from this, that this will go on not only in this life, this has been going on for many lives, and it'll continue. Because the illusion always says, there's something I don't have which will make me happy. There's something missing. If I just have it, it'll make me happy. So we're always, if I just have this, it'll make me happy. And you want to hear something really interesting, because this has been studied. They interviewed people and they asked, how much more money than you have now do you need or do you want? So the average answer was, I believe, 15%. But 15% more, I would be better, right? The interesting thing, that answer was given by poor people and multimillionaires. They gave the same answer, 15%. Like it's never enough. Even if you're a multimillionaire, you're still at the edge, 15% more. Isn't that amazing? Don't you think? Yeah. So that way the mind is tricking us. And then you die, when you die, you're still at 15%. You have to come back and make that other 15%, right? Because you're thinking, oh, it's not finished, right? Or I had big plans. I joke with devotees. My plan is not to come back here again, and I have to control myself because every time I fly, I hate it, and I always think, if I weren't a devotee, I would start my own airlines because I know as a traveler who travels a lot, I know exactly what would really be nice in an airline. And I have to think, I better not think like this because Krishna will then allow me to come back and start my own airlines. But that's how it works, you know. People die with ideas in their head that are unfulfilled. And they come back in their next life, and then you have this little like 12-year-old kid, and he's got a whole business plan in his mind, more sophisticated than an adult. Have you seen that? You know, or some talent. Because it's like it was an ambition unfulfilled. So he's coming back to fulfill it. And he doesn't even know where the ideas are. And Prabhupada said, it's really interesting. He said, you cannot have an idea in this life, well, that you didn't have in the last life. You can make it a little lower, Krishna. You cannot have an idea in this life that you didn't have in the last life. Isn't that interesting? So there's no, I mean, I mean, obviously we can think of things, but when we come in, so many of these samskars are there that are dictating what's going on in our mind. So that's how it works. There's always an ambition for more. We have ideas, things we want, and they never seem to end right up until the time of death. Of course, you don't know when you're going to die. If you die young, obviously lots of ambitions, but even when you're old, when older people who haven't fulfilled all their ambitions, when they find out they're going to die, even if they're 80, 85, 90, they're like, can I get a few more years? I have this ambition. So it never ends. And that's how we remain here. And that's why there's vanaprastha and sannyas, because at a certain point you just stop. Like, okay, the kids are growing up, they're out of the house, they're working, they're self-sufficient. I have my nest egg. I don't need to work. I don't need a big house. Now I can focus on preparing myself to go to Krishna because I have 5, 10, 15 years. So vanaprastha means you travel, you go to holy places, you cultivate spiritual life, you hear from the sadhus, right? So for us, we did that. We took vanaprastha when we were 19. It was just, a little early. Prabhupada was calling us, so we at 19 said, okay, I'm retiring now. Drop out of university, okay, I don't need it. That's not ordinary. But we're meant to do that later in life. And in order to do it later in life, you have to like practice. Because some people think, I'll just wait till I'm retired and then I'll do it. That's like, I don't know how to swim. And when I'm 75, I'm going to swim across the Atlantic with no practice. It doesn't work that way. So you cultivate spiritual life, but at that point you can retire and focus on it. That's the idea. Okay, let's read the next one. Because of conditioning, we gravitate towards material thinking, even against our will. So, because of conditioning, we gravitate towards material thinking, even against our will. It seems like it's against our will, but we're already predisposed to thinking that way. Like we have set goals and intentions. I want this. And so the mind will correspond with what we want. And so sometimes we don't even know why we're thinking a certain way, but the subconscious, the chitta, it's like that. It's programmed that way from other lives even. And sometimes you consciously understand, I don't want this, but the programming has been telling you for lifetimes you do, and it still continues like momentum, right? So as we cultivate spiritual knowledge, our values change, our perception of life changes, our goals change. And when that happens, subconscious changes, and then the thoughts change. Higher thoughts, right? Human beings are meant for higher thoughts. Atato Brahma Jigasha. You know this verse, Vedanta Sutra? Atato Brahma Jigasha. Atato means therefore, or it means now that you're a human. Atato. After you've evolved through different species of life, now you're human. Brahma Jigasha. Now ask, who am I? What am I doing here? Of course, the answer is to get a good job at Microsoft. That's what I'm doing here, right? That's the goal, right? Isn't it? Or another similar company. Google's better, right? More fun at Google, right? You have Google in St. Louis? No. Very sad. Have Google in Chennai, right? I was in Chennai. You could see it from the temple, right? Have Google just moved near, I heard it moved near the Los Angeles temple. Did you know that Chanakya Pandit said, don't move to a city where there's no Google. Did you know that? Yeah. No, it was don't move to a city where there's no river. But I added Google and Trader Joe's. Yeah. Don't ever live in a city where there's no Trader Joe's or Google. Yeah, but you have half of it here. So yeah. So as your conception of life, your goals of life change, automatically the thoughts change. And so if we're thinking in a more materialistic way, it's because that's obviously our ambition, right? And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just if that's all there is, then that's a problem because then you're not really taking advantage uh, of your human life. So we all need to work, we all need a home, car, family, and so forth. But they did a study that if you're poor and you become middle class, there's a huge increase in happiness because you're going from a stressful position where you don't know if you can make ends meet, you can't get good medical care, can't send your kids to good school. There's a lot of stress in the family when there's not money. So when you go from that position to middle class, it's a huge jump in happiness. But they did a study when you get to middle class and you go up to upper class, above that, it's minuscule, like 10% or something. Not almost not. It's like when you have your necessities, those things are not the causes of happiness. We know that as growing up in America, we had faced that, we had lived that, I think many of us who became devotees at that time, we we lived in that life. It was America was much different. There was like no crime here. The crime it wasn't even a thing that we even thought about. I walked to school when I was like 5, 6 years old, and nobody thought anything like that was a problem. Very prosperous, and families, no divorce. Well, it was against the law, but anyway, it was different. And so we grew up in this like kind of idyllic situation, 2 cars in every garage. Every 2 years, my father bought a new car. That was just like normal, Yeah. Whatever my mother wanted, we had. And it was just, things were not expensive. My father bought a house for $25,000. in 1950. That house is worth 1.7 million. I got to go in that house a few months ago. My sister and I were driving by the house, and the lady came out. She said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, we grew up in this house." She goes, "Come in." The internet. It was she bought the house for $67,000 or something in 1975, and she moved in, and now it's worth 1.7 million, which is unfortunate. My father sold it, but everything happens according to karma, you know. The rent on that house would be about 7,000. Not considering you could convert the garage because it has like a 400-foot garage. So, you know, we'd be getting close to 10,000 a month, which means I wouldn't have to work. Although the taxes are probably about 1,000. Anyway, that's not much. Anyway, but the thing is, we grew up in that situation. So, you know, our parents didn't, you know, it didn't seem like that was really like something that made them happy when we were seeing that. And so we all thought, our generation all thought, well, there must be something else. So we were fortunate to be in that situation. And if you stay in America long enough where your kids, you know, you naturally, you know, it's good to have what you always wanted because then you know it's like there's more. There's more to life, right? Isn't it? After you get 100 sorries, you realize, all right, that's probably enough, right? Till you see another one you like and you buy it. And, you know, so it's good, you know, for a few days you get excited, you get to wear it to a wedding. It's like it's over, right? And your husband is like lamenting for the rest of his life. And buy you that sorry, right? Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll read the next one. An uncontrolled mind is like a disease. If not cured, it will continue to harass one. An uncontrolled mind means a mind that just wants unlimited things. It'll never stop desiring. I was, a couple of years ago, I was thinking, I wanted to do a TED Talk, and I was thinking I wanted to do it on happiness because it's an interesting topic. And I thought maybe I would start the talk by asking a question, and I'll ask you this question. It's a really interesting question. Would you be happier if you got what you wanted or if you never wanted it in the first place? Would you be happier if this thing that you wanted you got, or if you never even wanted it in the first place? Or I guess maybe not happier, better off, more satisfied, more peaceful. You ever like you ever like buy something and then you go to your friend's house like a month later and he's got a better one, and it wasn't on the market then? And so you were fine until you found out that there's a better one, right? You know, ignorance is bliss. So it's quite interesting. As soon as you want something that you don't have, you're in anxiety now to get it. And especially if it's difficult to get, or especially if it's something you'll never get. Like, I want to be the president of the United States, and I'm totally in anxiety to be the president, and it's not going to happen, right? So, so the uncontrolled mind it's generating desire after desire after desire. And you know what's really interesting? We have a desire and we think in our mind, I will fulfill the desire in this way. But there's a problem that the way we think of fulfilling it can't fulfill it. So we have a lot of desires that it can never be fulfilled. It's not possible. And so it's a kind of like we torment ourselves. And so, you know, therefore, you know, we have this culture of renunciation, of giving up something. And a lot of times when you attach to something that you don't need or is difficult to get, if you can get yourself to give it up, you feel this huge relief. You feel peace. Just like, I gave it up. I don't need it. Have you ever done that? You just given up something you want, but you decide it's not good. I don't need it. It's too complicated, too expensive, whatever, and you let it go. You feel like you just got your tooth painlessly pulled, and it's just like this pain is gone. Because attachment is a pain. And when you let it go, you feel relief. And the more we want that we can't get, the more in anxiety we are, the harder we work and strive, right? There is a man, I don't know his name, but he's one of the most obnoxious people I've ever seen on YouTube. And every fourth word he curses, and he's extremely successful. And I think he does seminars to help business people become successful. And basically, he just insults people the whole, he makes Donald Trump look like a lamb. He just insults people. I'm serious. He's like, do you know who I'm talking about? He's dresses really well, so he's got his little handkerchief, and he intimidates people that you're not working hard enough. Like if you want to get ahead, you have to compete with people who are working 65, 70 hours. You have to work 80 hours. You want to start a company. Everyone who starts a successful company is working at least 80 hours work. So a week, do the math. That's like 11 and a half hours a day, 7 days a week, right? So if you sleep like 7, 8 hours, that leaves you a few hours just to get your head above water and, say hello and goodbye to your family and kids for 5 minutes. So he's really heavy about this. You all losers, you're not working 85 hours a week, you're a loser. Then he tells his story that when he started his company, he was living in his office and his secretary would bring him a change of underwear every day, and he never left this office. He was working 100 hours a week. I said, we have this word in Sanskrit in Bhagavad Gita, mudha. Mudha means ass. So Krishna says, some people are like asses. They just work, work, work. So I named him the Mudha avatar when he said he works 100 hours a week. I said, and he's proud of it, right? So it's like we have these desires, we need to fulfill them, and then we get caught up in living a life which is like destroying us, and we're proud of it. Like, look how hard I work. Yeah, you're a fool. Number one fool to work that hard, right? So that's the way the mind works. It's just like it pulls us with desire, and then we work harder, get ahead. 1 PhD, 2 PhDs, 3 PhDs. Anybody here have 2 PhDs? Okay. First, I'll make 1 million, then I'll make 10 million, then I'll make 20 million, and then I'll make 50 million. Like, if someone has 10 million and they're still working hard, I always think like, you don't have to. You could, even if you're 25, you could retire and just do what you want. I mean, but this desire, right? Well, 10 million, like I want to be now it's when I was young, it was a millionaire. Now it's a billionaire. And I think somebody's a trillionaire now. Does anyone know who that is? That guy in China or somebody's like a trillionaire. It's like inconceivable. It's like sports. Who can be a billionaire? Isn't it? So you get this desire in you. Now, there's this surfer. His goal is to ride the biggest waves. I think he rode a wave which is 110 feet, which if he fell off, he'd be dead. So he's risking his life to do this. Interesting, got a family and kids. I just saw on the internet. It must have been recently. Like world's record. It's just so that's the way the mind is. It's just unlimitedly pulling us on. Okay. The next one. The mind often creates stories, fears, and assumptions that have no basis in reality. Do you ever have a fear and you finally do it and you realize that was easy. That ever happened to you? Like you have to give a speech in your class. You're like, call in sick today. I can't do it. I can't do it. Well, you have to do it because it's part of your assignment, and you prepare and you do it at home to your parents like 400 times, so you can do it in your sleep. So you finally go to the school and it's like you just do it because you've memorized it, and you come home and you go, how was it? Oh, it was easy. But you pretty much were having a nervous breakdown the night before, right? So that's how fears work. They're often just stories in our head that we make up about something that we're afraid we can't handle, isn't it? It means all of us have fears. I could never do that. How do you know? Did you ever do it? No. Well, then how do you know? It's just a story in my head that I can't, right? So, sometimes you have to be careful with the mind because it'll make things up, assumptions, right? Like if I see a certain person, I will make assumptions about them because most people like them are like this. That's just how the mind works, right? You probably think this way and do this and do that because you're part of this group or religion or ethnicity or this country or something. So we make assumptions. No basis in reality. We just, oh, you must be like this, right? Um, the mind is not conscious. It is the instrument through which consciousness works. The mind is matter. Did you know that? Isn't that interesting? Like we're conscious, but the mind is not conscious because the mind's matter. We are consciousness as soul, but the mind's like a interface. And the next two are my favorites. It's so interesting. Are you ready for the next two? And then we'll take questions. I find these fascinating. The mind has no shape, but assumes the shape and size of whatever we examine. So imagine the mind is just like clay, and whatever you're thinking, it becomes that. So whatever you're thinking, that shape, that form, that color, that size, your mind just takes on that. Isn't that interesting? It's not that hard to understand because we think in mental images. And the last one, love this one. This is so interesting. Wherever we place our attention, the mind is there. We are where the mind is. So right now, you might be thinking of your mother, and where's your mother now? What city? Which city? Chennai? Bhubaneswar. So he could be thinking of his mother in Bhubaneswar right now. So where is he? Is he in St. Louis or Bhubaneswar? He's in Bhubaneswar. We are where the mind is. Some of our thoughts are pretty nasty. So we are there. Like you get angry at someone, you're envious. Where are you? A very dark place. Even though you're sitting in a palace, with all the lights on, you're in a dark place, right? And if my mind is thinking of Krishna, that's where I am. My mind is thinking of some tirtha, that's where I am. Yeah. So, you have any questions on what we've discussed tonight? Let's read this, because this is a verse that many of us know. This is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence of mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So, we are not the mind. That's good news. Best news you've gotten all day, right? We are not the mind. And how do you know you're not the mind? How can I prove it to you in case you have a doubt? Because you can observe it. And if you can observe something, you are not that thing you're observing. How could you be? Because you're outside observing it, right? So you can observe your thoughts. What are you thinking now? You're thinking, what are we going to have for prasadam? Are you thinking like that? Yes? Yeah. He's thinking like that, right? So you have a thought, what are we going to have for prasadam? But you are the thinker of the thought. So the thought is observed by you. Just like we are conscious of the body, we're not the body, we're conscious of the mind. We observe it. So, so the big question is, who's going to control the mind? The observer, or is the mind going to control the observer, or the observer control the mind? And that's a choice we make all the time, at every moment. Because everything in life is a choice. And it's just nice to remember that we're not the mind, and we always have power over it. There's a nice story, and we can relate this to the mind. There's a friend of ours, our neighbors, and before they were our neighbors, we knew them like since like the early 80s. So when her son was young, he was having a bit of a tantrum in a store because he wanted something and she didn't want to give it to him. And sometimes you know how kids are when they want something. They get out of hand, and she was having a hard time controlling him because she was just like, no, can't have it, and like that, being nice, but it wasn't working. So someone came up to her who I guess assumed that she's a young mother and it's like having trouble. I'll give her some advice. And all he said is, excuse me, you're the mother, he's the son. And she immediately understood, take control of your son. So, excuse me, you're the soul. Take control of your mind. When your mind is screaming and yelling, go here, do this, do that. Things that will not help you. Just tell your mind that's whatever. I'm the soul, you're the mind, you do what I say. That's the process. And that's how you actually exhibit real care for yourself. And that is called the power of I decide. Here's a verse, here's a purport from the Bhagavatam. Independence implies that one can use it properly or improperly. It's not static, it is dynamic. Yeah. I am above my mind, so I, not the mind, decide the direction of my life. Did we do this yesterday? I decide. Did we do that? No? Okay. We did? Yeah. And we tell the person next to us, I decide. Yeah. You want to do it again? Okay, tell the person next to you, I decide. My mind does not decide, I decide. Okay. So here's a little affirmation. We'll end with this affirmation. I'll read it and then we'll read it together. I decide to plant nourishing and uplifting thoughts in the garden of my mind and let go of thoughts I do not want. So let's read it together. I decide to plant nourishing and uplifting thoughts in the garden of my mind and let go of thoughts I do not want. Wow. Looks much better on your screen than my screen. My screen is dark green and like rusty bronze. Mm. I want a screen like that. I need a new computer with what, like 8K screen or something. Okay. I'm not going to any stores to look at the better screens because I don't want it. You ever seen an 8K screen? It's crazy, isn't it? I saw it for the first time. I'm out of it. I was with my sister. I saw for the first time an 8K screen. It's like she was sitting in front of the screen going, and she wanted to buy a TV. I go, it's a good time to buy a 4K TV because they're going to be cheaper because now the 8K is out. Okay, so if you have any questions, we have we have two Zoom going right now. One Chinese and one non-Chinese. And so I have to look like at the chat and both of them uh, multitasking here. Okay. And if you here have any questions, then please. So I'm gonna turn your volume up. So if there is a question, if someone has a question, just let me know, and then we'll make time for it. You want to hear Chinese?
Yes.
Okay, we'll have a question in English, and then if you have any questions in Chinese, I'll ask you in a minute. Okay? You have to sing Chinese because if you say a word and you go up, ni, ni hao, ni hao. If you don't do it like that, then it can have a different meaning. Can we spiritualize the mind? How can we do that? And in that case, what spiritual mind is called? If the spiritual intelligence is called Krishna consciousness. Spiritual mind is called spiritualized mind, which means like anything can be spiritualized. Anything material can be spiritualized when used in Krishna's service. So a mind which is thinking of how to serve, a mind which is thinking of Krishna's instructions, discussing it, a mind that's thinking how to improve one's self, one's service, one's devotion. That's a spiritualized mind. And so that's a perfected mind. So you can spiritualize anything. And not only can you, you should. That's the goal. The goal is to be Krishna conscious, which means that's the mind is somehow seeing Krishna everywhere. Just like one time the devotees were walking and the devotee said to Prabhupada, like we always wondered how Prabhupada saw things. You know, he said, you're walking with this great pure devotee, this great sadhu, and he's walking next to you and you're thinking, I wonder how he sees things. I mean, I know how I see things. I wonder how because he's seeing Krishna. He should be seeing Krishna everywhere. So one devotee was bold enough to ask Prabhupada how, the way we would ask Prabhupada, we wouldn't say how do you see things? We would say, Prabhupada, how does the pure devotee see things? And Prabhupada in his humility would describe how a pure devotee sees things, not necessarily how he was seeing things. Or, yeah, see, my sweater looks better there than here, right? It's more green. Okay? Yes? I want a sweater like that. So Prabhupada said, a pure devotee sees that everything belongs to Krishna. So that's how he sees Krishna everywhere. Just like sometimes you'll see a car and it's your friend's car and you'll think of your friend, right? It's the blue Toyota RAV4. And that's Gopal or that's Sam Patel or whoever, Joe Patel. Right? You ever see that? Or we see your shoes and we think of you. Those are your shoes. Rukmini's shoes. Oh, and then I know Rukmini's here because I see her shoes. So Just like a mother thinks of her kids when they see kids' shoes or whatever. So Prabhupada said a devotee sees everything is Krishna's. He owns it all. So everything reminds him of Krishna. And a pure devotee, he's always Krishna conscious because he sees everything as Krishna's energy, everything belongs to him. He doesn't see anything separate, even his body. That's the answer to that question. Okay. So, Shumanapriya, you have a question from the Chinese devotees? Okay. Not yet. We're almost done. We're going to finish class soon, so if not yet, we'll be over soon. Which is, if they have no questions, it's okay. Anybody here have a question? Rukmini, you have a question? No? That no or yes? That's yes in India and no in America. You were kind of in the middle. Yeah, wasn't sure. Yes. Okay. 1 second.
Sometimes your mind is wandering very wildly when you are alone. So at that time, how can you control your mind very wisely?
Oh,
Because maybe that time you even could not think of chanting or read books. You just focused on get what you want.
you,
就是
you're saying, I wasn't clear. You're saying when you're alone, sometimes it's difficult to control your mind. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Because at that time your mind is very wild. You cannot think of even chanting or
Yeah,
read
when you're
books to
alone.
help
Yeah,
you
when you're alone.
get out
Yeah.
this mind.
Well,
那这个问题就是，一个人的时候呢，可能这个心也真的有时候有一点疯狂。那么这个时候呢，你这个疯狂的这个心理，它
takes
是
longer to speak Chinese than
通
English.
过这个念诵或者是阅读来去摆脱这个心野这种强烈的想要某个东西的一个愿望。那这个时候你该怎么办呢？
Yeah, you remember during COVID, some people were alone and they were going crazy, right? Wasn't you remember that? I'm alone with myself. It means alone with my mind.
这个心理相处。
So Jumanapriya, you're not alone, you're with your mind. You know,
心意在一起。
you know what I find? If you have something that inspires you, you have a service that inspires you, that keeps you busy, it'll keep your mind absorbed.
如果你能有一项服务让你能够变得很专注的话，那么你就可以就是完全投身于这项服务当中。
So if you live alone, you should have some service that occupies you and a service that you really like, and it will keep you engaged and out of trouble.
就是有这个服务可做的话呢，你会让自己一直不断的忙于从事这个服务。Yes and no, but sometimes I want to go shopping online, and when I want to buy something, I see more beautiful thing, like some beautiful foods. I want to buy more, so I cannot stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it's difficult to get
Well,
rid of it.
the shopping experience is designed for you to buy more than you intended. Do you know they've done studies, and I think it's kind of obvious. They set the store up in a way to keep you in the store as long as possible, because the longer you stay in, the more things you'll buy, because the more things you'll see. And when you see something, you can get it, you go in to buy a little plug, a little charger for your phone. And on the way to get the charger, which is a common thing, they might put it in the back of the store, so you have to see everything else. And you'll see, oh, look at that speaker. Or you're hearing the speaker. That's amazing. That'd be nice to have in my kitchen. Oh, these headphones. I have these really bad headphones, and let me try these. Oh, wow, they're so good. So they know our weaknesses, and therefore they play into our weakness, right?
我就说举个例子，就比如说如果我在那个网上购物，尤其是现在春节之前嘛，要买一些衣服啊等等家居品，然后网上
I guess some of you work in companies, so you already know they're designing next year's product now or 2 years. So, right, version 7, we're on version 12, but version 17 is already like blueprinted or planned, just to drive us crazy and only put certain features in each model. Just enough features to make us want it, right? Isn't it? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Setting up a goal is a bad thing, or because
Depends on the goal.
being in this materialistic world, you have to survive and maintain the family.
Yeah. Right.
So if you think about before Corona, whatever you are earning, it might be enough, but because of inflation, whatever you were earning before may not be enough now to maintain the same family.
Mhm.
So, but do I see as setting up a goal to achieve more money is a bad thing in that situation, or?
No, it's just nothing's bad per se. It's just bad if you do it in a way in which you don't maintain your sanity, the sanctity of your family, and the sanctity of your spiritual life. So that's the challenge. You have to do it in a way that, it's like, okay, we need a little more money, otherwise we're going to have to downsize. Okay. But in the process of trying to make more money, maybe that's worse than downsizing. That's possible, right? We wanted to go on this vacation, buy this new car. Maybe it's better we don't. And, we'll get by, our life's okay, and we'll just get by on less. But if I want to step up, then I have to get a promotion, which means I'll be working like another, 12 hours a day instead of 8 or 9, working on Saturdays. So you have to see if these things are worth it, and especially in relation to how it's going to affect you emotionally and spiritually. So most of us think, well, upward mobility is good. But sometimes upward mobility comes at a huge cost of time and stress. So sometimes it's better to not take advantage of an opportunity because it's not good for us. If your value system is upward mobility is good, better position, more prestige, better income, then naturally you'll just gravitate and you won't think, is this really good for me? Because those are your only metrics. But in making those your metrics, you're missing out on other things that could get compromised. So there's a principle of balance, and it's a very interesting principle that in order to achieve something, often we sacrifice something else. So something which is important gets minimized so I could maximize something else, so I could focus and put more time and energy into it. But the thing that you compromise may be something very important. And sometimes you may have to actually fail in something, just like neglect it, to put the time into something else. So you're failing. You're succeeding at this by having to fail at this. And if this thing is important also, then what was the point of succeeding here? Because you got something, but maybe you gave up more to get it. Especially if you give up your spiritual life, it's like, what do you have now? Your kids can go to Harvard instead of like the, university and whatever that one in the car. Starts with a C. No, south of here. Carbondale, yeah. So they're going to go to the university in Carbondale instead of Harvard. It's not like the end of the world, right? You'll survive, So you have to look at these things, It's like, okay, But if she goes to Harvard, she'll make more money when she graduates, and you'll be in the hospital, and she'll take care of you because you'll be stressed. So, right? There's obviously there are other factors which are social pressures, but if social pressures are causing us to act in ways which are unhealthy, then we should not, we should be detached. Sometimes you're just like, okay, there's social pressure. What are people going to think if I do this? But I know I'll be happy and peaceful. So, so let them think what they want to think. But I don't want to be controlled by what people think. I want to control my life in the direction that's best, not because of social pressure, or not because of, financial goals that may be really stressful to reach and ultimately counterproductive. If it's not, it's like it's not a problem. I have these goals and we need this. All right, fine, whatever. You just don't sacrifice your life for it. I think we mentioned that you work hard. You work hard all your life so you can pay the bills because you never took care of your health. So now you made money and you neglected your health, and now you have all this money to pay for all the doctors you're going to need to pay for when you're older. What's the point? It's not sattvic. Sattva guna is always like, it's just everything is good. Rajaguna is I need more and more and prestige and what I think? I think it's like if people are going to judge me based on what I'm wearing and where I live and what I do, that's so superficial. Do I want to be that superficial to play that game? And I'm not even the body. That's their choice to judge me that way, but why should I play that game? Then if I don't play that game, I'm free from that. And I can make the right decision. You know what I do when I speak, especially in India, this is a joke because we know how much Indians are, how should I say it? They have a lot of titles on their business cards, right? Calling like whatever title you can get, isn't it? All these titles, I don't know what they are. It's like they're boy, BS. What's that? Bachelor's? No, it's Boy Scouts. It's like any title you can get, right? You put on your card. So, I went to the University of California, Berkeley, which at that time and maybe still today was rated the #1 state university in the United States, and some people say it's the #1 state university in the universe. So I had the privilege and honor of dropping out from a school in which my parents were paying the tuition, the apartment, the car, the meals, the rent, everything. It was a life of luxury. And sometimes I went to class when I had time, but most of the time I just fooled around. So it was a good life. So I will introduce myself. So some people introduce myself, and I say, well, they didn't mention that one of my credentials is I'm a UDO. And everyone's like, a UDO? And I go like, Mark Zuckerberg's a UDO, and Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, UDO is a university dropout. So it's like, it's just like right in your face. Because you value, you value high education, degrees, position. And I'm telling you, I'm a university dropout. That's pretty disappointing, right? So I just have fun because I know that Indians generally will evaluate you on externals. So that's why I throw in Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Mark Zuckerberg, because they did pretty good. They're UDOs, they're doing fine. And in fact, there are people like, what's his name? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, and people like that who'll tell you that if you want to be rich, going to university is the absolute worst thing you could do. They're just, like totally against the grain. That's not how you get rich. You get rich through investing, having your own business, and not working to make someone else rich. I mean, you might do well, but not rich, rich, rich. So, a lot of these people are disruptors. And gurus and sadhus are total disruptors. They speak totally against, like everyone's going this way, and they're like, you're all idiots. Go this way. So, we don't want to be. It's sad to be controlled by social pressure if that social pressure is not healthy. Might be healthy, but not always, right? If we were controlled by social pressure, there would be no Hare Krishna movement because no one would have joined. And if nobody joined Prabhupada, nothing could have happened. He needed Americans, even to get it going in India. He needed Americans. And if Americans didn't just drop out and be revolutionaries and not care about their parents crying and telling them they're crazy and they're giving up their careers and education and your friends saying you're crazy, there wouldn't have been a movement. It was the fact that people joined in the beginning then created, it meant other people could join. It was okay. Isn't that, and have you ever thought of that? Like, unless we went against the grain and joined Prabhupada and just like did a 180-degree turnaround, there would have been no movement. He couldn't have done it without people joining. Who would distribute the books? Who would open the temples? Who would tell people? He would have just had to go back to India. He'd go back to Vrindavan and just do his bhajan, right? So, think about it. Okay, I think we should stop now. Take prasadam, right? Become, yeah, we have a question. If become Krishna conscious, will the mind intelligence automatically? Yeah, because you have to use them. Okay, thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. Let's say goodbye.
Give a little introduction. So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming on Friday evening and spending your time with us. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Good night.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.